All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of nature's most powerful and honestly most misunderstood forces, the tsunami. Think about this for a second. What kind of force can silently race across an entire ocean, unnoticed by ships passing right over it, and then just unleash unimaginable power on a coast? Well, that's what we're talking about today, the tsunami. The name itself is a pretty big clue. It comes from the Japanese words for harbor and wave. But here's the first thing you really need to get. A tsunami isn't just one giant wave. No, it's a series of them, like a wave train, that can just hammer a coastline for hours on end. And it all starts with a massive, sudden shove of water. So right away, let's get one thing straight. This is not the kind of wave you go surfing on. A normal wind wave? That's just a surface thing. A tsunami it's a totally different beast. We're talking about a wavelength that can be hundreds of kilometers long. And its energy isn't just on the surface. It goes all the way down through the entire water column right to the ocean floor. That's where all that terrifying power comes from. So, what on Earth has enough power to move that much water? Well, the vast majority of the time, about 80% of cases, the culprit is a massive earthquake deep under the ocean. But, other things can trigger them too. We're talking giant landslides slipping into the sea or huge volcanic eruptions. Think Krakatoa back in 1883. And yeah, even a meteorite impact could do it, though that's incredibly rare. Okay, so we know what they are and what kicks them off. But how exactly does an earthquake happening miles below the surface create a wave that can cross an entire ocean? Let's dig into the science behind this unseen force. It all starts in what's called a subduction zone. This is where one massive tectonic plate is grinding underneath another one. But they don't just slide smoothly. They get stuck. They lock up. And for decades, sometimes even centuries, the plate on top starts to bulge and deform, storing up an incredible amount of energy, kind of like a giant spring being pushed down. And then, snap. It suddenly releases. The seafloor lurches upwards, sometimes by several meters, and in that instant, it shoves the entire column of ocean water above it. And all that water, it has to go somewhere, right? So that energy radiates outward from the epicenter, sending waves out in all directions. It's really just like the ripples you see when you toss a rock into a pond, but on a mind-boggling scale. Now, this is what makes a tsunami so incredibly deceptive. Out in the deep ocean, it's a speed demon. We're talking as fast as a jet plane, over 700 kilometers an hour. But you'd never know it. The wave height might be less than a meter high. A ship could sail right over it and not even feel a thing. But then, as it gets closer to shore and the ocean gets shallower, everything changes. The wave starts to slow down and all that forward energy gets compressed. It has nowhere to go but up. And that's when the height just explodes, building into a massive, towering wall of water. The science is one thing, but to really understand the sheer power we're dealing with, we have to look at a real-world event. So let's break down the anatomy of one of the most devastating disasters in modern history, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Just look at that number. Over 227,000 lives lost. It's almost impossible to comprehend. This wasn't just a powerful natural event. It was a human catastrophe on a scale that is just staggering. And what's so critical to understand here, and this is a quote from NOAA, is that while the earthquake started it all, it was the tsunami that did most of the damage. The earthquake was the trigger, but the waves were the weapon that caused the vast majority of impacts across so many countries.
And the numbers behind it are just mind-blowing. A magnitude 9.1 earthquake. Waves that reached up to 167 feet high. It hit 17 countries and left 1.7 million people homeless. But here's the key factor, the thing that turned a terrible disaster into an absolute historic catastrophe. At that time, there was no official tsunami warning system in the Indian Ocean. None. It was a tragic, catastrophic gap in our global defense.
And while 2004 was a massive wake-up call for the whole world, tsunamis are certainly not a new problem. Just look at this photo. This is what was left of the waterfront in Hilo, Hawaii after a tsunami back in 1946. These events are a recurring, devastating part of our planet's history. It's a powerful reminder that we live on a very active Earth. So, what changed?
Well, the tragedy of 2004 sparked a global revolution in how we watch the oceans. Let's take a look at the incredible technology we now have in place to keep an eye on the waves.
This right here, this is our modern global network of defense. And the heart of it all are these amazing things called DART buoys. That stands for Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis. After 2004, the network expanded dramatically. The U.S. network went from just 6 buoys to 39. These things sit way out in the deep ocean, and their whole job is to detect the tiny change in water pressure when a tsunami passes overhead. They then beam that data in real time to warning centers that are staffed 24/7.
Okay, so when that system detects a potential threat, it issues alerts. And it is absolutely critical to know what these different levels mean. If you see an information statement, that's basically just an FYI. An earthquake happened, but no threat. A watch means, hey, pay attention, a tsunami is possible. An advisory means you need to take action, stay out of the water, get away from the beach. But a warning? That's the big one. That means dangerous, life-threatening flooding is expected. Your only job is to move to high ground or get inland, immediately.
This technology is absolutely incredible, a real game changer. But it's not foolproof, and warnings can't always reach everyone instantly. So when it really comes down to it, the #1 key to survival is you. So let's talk about how to survive the surge.
And listen, if you take away only one thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. Official warnings are critical. They save countless lives. But sometimes the very first warning you get won't come from your phone or a siren, especially if you're close to the source. The first warning will come from nature itself.
So you need to know these signs by heart. There are 3 big ones. First, you feel it. A strong earthquake that makes it hard to stand up, or one that just goes on for an unusually long time. If you're at the coast and that happens, that's your signal. Second, you see it. The ocean does something bizarre. It suddenly and rapidly pulls back, exposing the seafloor. That is a classic textbook sign. And third, you hear it. A loud, strange roar coming from the ocean. People who've survived tsunamis often say it sounds like a freight train or jet engine.
I'm going to say this one more time, because this is the part that can literally save your life. If you are at the coast and you feel, see, or hear any of those signs, you don't wait for an official warning. You don't stop to take a video. You don't go back to pack a bag. You just go. Your only job is to get to high ground or as far inland as possible, as fast as you can.
So in the end, we've built this incredible global system to watch the waves. But technology can only do so much. The most important defense, the first line of defense, is you. So the real question is, after all this, would you know the signs? Because that knowledge is the most powerful tool you have.